Hey, hi there, John Shell, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Corvette Power Top Service. We want to do a small seminar today on the Corvette Power Tops from actually about 1956 to 1962 today. We're going to do some components. We're going to do some bolts. We're going to do some what things were painted and things that were not painted. So we're going to do a mini seminar here. It might be 2 parts, okay? So I want to welcome you. Hope you can learn some things. Of my 25 years experience in this, I have learned a lot. And at times, sadly to say, it's been a nightmare, but we've pushed through, and I enjoy working on power tops. Yes, they can be frustrating. Not a lot of information out there, but I hope that this, what I can help you today in your restoration of your project, okay? So what we want to do is, my son, Chris, is going to do an overview of the parts that I have here on the table. So Chris, why don't you come on up here, and we're going to kind of start right here with the motor mount and the solenoid valves that set in this bracket, okay, that mount in the trunk area, okay? We're going to deal with the side switch. This switch assembly mounts beside the passenger seat. And then we're going to go to the glove box area. Above your glove box and your push button to open your deck lid, we've got some switch brackets here, and we've got a switch. And then we're going to go to what I call the trunk divider, where the convertible top lays down in that well above your gas tank. We're going to deal with this bracket, and which has switches on it, and the cover. And then we're going to go to the trunk area, and we're going to see a couple brackets back there and a mount for the rear cylinder and the trunk lid switch. So let's come back to the motor mount, what I call the motor mount and the solenoid mount. And normally I bead blast these all up. You can see from down through the wear and tear, we have a few cracks in here, and I've not welded this one up yet, but we will come on the underside and we will get this all strengthened up and welded. This has all been bead blasted. And then what I do is a lot of times I have to put a little body filler in it, and we know that you can't have this zinc plated or anything with body filler in it. So what I do is I use a Krylon Brilliant Metallic, and I will get that paint number for you, and I will spray that. It kind of looks like a cadmium plate, something like this right here, okay? This unit here has been restored and sprayed with that. Again, this mounts in the trunk area, and we have some bolts that hold it in. We have 2 here at the end, and we have 2 here in the middle of it, and then we also have 2 in the back that come through the trunk divider. They're about 3/4 of an inch long. They do have a lock washer and a flat washer on them, and usually I have found them to be TR bolts, okay? The ones here, I have found 2 different types being used. We've had this WB1C bolt. I have found that in different cars, okay, with a lock washer on it for your 4 bolts. I've also found this bolt here, and it seems to have just an indentation right in the center of it. And these bolts are about 3/4 of an inch long. These bolts are very hard to find. Usually you don't get them if you're buying a unit or something like that, because somebody has just usually thrown them away. So what I have done, I have found these bolts, and I got these off the internet, and it is called a grade A serrated flange bolt. And it is similar to this other bolt here that I just showed you. It has that washer on it. It does have a serrated edge underneath there, and it does have a shoulder on it. Something very similar to the original bolt, okay? And again, that is called a grade A 5/16, 18 by 3/4, 18 thread, 3/4 long, serrated flange bolt. Let's go to what we have. We have the solenoids that are bolting in to or screwing into the these mounts here. And of course, this solenoid valve here will be for your deck lid. It always mounts on the top. The one for your convertible top mounts at the bottom. These were originally held in. I have found two different types of screws holding these in. One of them is this example right here. It is just it's not a Phillips head or anything. It's just a slotted head. And I have found that as an original piece in some of the units. And then I've also found this real small little screw holding them down. This does not give you much of a grabbing power, and a lot of times these very holes are kind of loose, and maybe a screw like this won't hold it very good. So what I normally do, unless the owner is going all original, I will use a Phillips screw like this with a star washer on the back of it to make sure I'm getting a good ground. These units must have a good ground. And so this is a Phillips head, very small, works very good for mounting these. You can see that I have taken a wire brush on a drill and I have cleaned off this cadmium type plate on the top and on the bottom, also to get a good ground. Let's move on to this side switch assembly now that mounts beside the passenger seat. This is an unrestored unit right here. A lot of times you'll find a lot of rust down here at the bottom because these cars, again, leaked water in the Midwest or whatever. And so a lot of times they'll be really rotted out down in this area. And but this is a good example here of an original piece. Again, you have these little special type of bolts going through that can swing back and forth. There's an adjustment in here that swings this back and forth. You can see that right there to adjust your switch. These are like rubber. And a lot of times I'll find those cracked and deteriorated. So what I do is I take a rubber tube out of a bicycle and cut them and poke holes in them and lay them down there. This is to actually keep the switch from actually turning and twisting. It makes a rubbing contact to where when you tighten these, snug these bolts down on top of that plastic, it'll keep them from turning. The bolts that I have found to mount this, and there's a plate that goes underneath the floor. I don't have one here handy with me, but what I have found is I have found a bolt like this, and we tried to look at the head marking on it, but we just couldn't see in clarity what that head marking was. But this is the type of bolt that we have seen holding this down right here. Again, very hard to find original bolts, okay? So what I've done is I have found these also through the internet, something very close, and these work just fine. You can see that it's got the washer already built in on it, and so this will work just fine, as you can see, and there's just a little bit of play there for adjustment, and so this works very fine. Also, this, and I don't have the cover handy, over this switch assembly is a cover, And this is the type of bolt that was used on that cover. Phillips head has a washer on it. I do not see a serrated edge or anything. I've also come across to where we've had two different thread designs. We've had the fine thread and we've had the coarser thread. For some reason, maybe a different company making these and threading these bolts here that are spot welded into this mechanism, different type of threads. As you can see from this original, this was probably a zinc plated piece, and this arm was painted black before it was riveted on, okay? And this rod, again, attaches to your convertible top system and moves up and down to cancel the switches, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment here. This is a restored unit. Now, I've not painted this black yet or anything, but again, this has been bead blasted up, been kind of, finished out a little bit, and usually, a lot of times, I'll take and I'll lay this on my vise, and I'll take a punch, and I'll try to tighten that up in there a little bit. These things tend to wobble quite a bit. Now, that's kind of normal there. Okay, you see that wobbling back and forth? That is normal. They were not to where they were just so tight that there was no play in it. Okay, but what I generally do, since this is all hid and everything, it's kind of hard to tape around that. What I do is I put my masking tape right around this very edge right here and paint that black. Nobody sees that down in there. Now, again, if a 100% guy wants a restored unit, then we'll do it a different way. We have the same thing here now that's been restored, and I have the switch assembly in there. And I want to point out these wires here. Most of the time, I have seen these micro switches as the number BA2RL2. That is BA2RL2. In a few instances, it's a 20 amp. It's a 20 amp is what it is. But in a few instances, I've seen a 15 amp micro switch, which was a BZ2RL2. That is a BZ2RL2. You can see the little rollers here, and as this top goes up and down, we cancel the switches. We cancel the